the whooping crane, the fourth wildlife conservation stamp. And this is a picture I took not too far from my house. October of 2018, I got this excited call from my brother who was on his way to work going, guess what I saw in the cornfield? And it happened to be this little flock of 9 sandhill cranes and the 2 whooping cranes. Now there's lots of sandhills around the area, but I was surprised and disappointed when I picked a stamp to start collecting first day covers of to find out there's no no sandhill crane stamp put out by the US. So I picked this one, which I also happen to think is one of the most beautiful stamps the Post Office Department put out. It's the 1957 conservation stamp featuring the whooping crane family. And I'm going to talk just quick background about whooping cranes themselves as an explanation or background as to why that particular bird was chosen for the stamp. In 1937, over here on the left, you see one of the figures from a National Geographic article where they say it's apparently the whooping crane is a doomed species, and because there are only 17 left in the wild, that was a pretty safe bet at that time. And over on the right, 1957, when the stamp was issued, somebody took, has no identification on it whatsoever on this card, took this image, made the card, and used it as a maxi card during the first day of issue. So only 17 left in 1937. Fast forward a few years, by 1950, there were only 20 left, maybe 19 or 20. And the problem is, among other things, is loss of habitat, overhunting, but only 20 returned to Aransas National Wildlife Refuge, which is down here on the Texas Gulf Coast. And see this, that's meant to be the flyway, the migration route, and it just kind of goes off to the border of Texas, and that is part of the problem. Nobody knew where they went in the winter. In the summer. All we knew is that they went north. 1954, the summer nesting site was finally discovered up in the wilds of northern Canada at the Wood Buffalo National Park. That's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Canada actually put out this stamp in 2015, and this is what it looks like. It's this mix of land, dry land, marshland, and open water, and that's the habitat that the cranes prefer. So 1954, there were maybe 24 left. 1955, Canada issued the first whooping crane stamp to celebrate the fact that the nesting grounds had been found. Well, the United States already had its stamp program made up for 55 and 56. So we issued the first stamp on November 22nd, 1957. It's the 4th stamp in the series. The previous 3 are shown here. They're all a single color stamp. The claim to fame of the whooping crane stamp is that the Post Office Department had purchased the Giori press that can do 3 colors at the same time. And this is the first stamp that was done using that 3-color capability, issued November 22nd, 1957. And it was designed by Bob Hines, who was a self-taught artist, wildlife artist with the Fish and Wildlife Service. And this is an image that came out of a biography that appeared in 2012. And lo and behold, it shows him painting the original artwork for the whooping crane stamp. So the Stamp was issued November 22nd in 3 cities and 4 locations, which makes collecting interesting. It was released in Corpus Christi, New Orleans, the New York City General Post Office, and the AFDCS Stamp Show. The theme of the stamp show was wildlife conservation, so that made a lot of sense to have a ceremony there. Corpus Christi, here's the, was put out by, the ceremony was organized by the Seagull Stamp Club, which designed, this is their first cachet. It was designed by Hiram Swindoll, and this is kind of interesting. This is a recent purchase because it came with a letter dated the week before the stamp show and the first day ceremony. And Hiram was complaining to his friend Charles that he had just gotten a request, more like a demand, from the president of the stamp club saying, we've got to have a completely different design for the cover of our program. So he had just stayed up all night knocking out this design. So the first day program is also by Swindoll. And this is, Corpus Christi is the largest city closest to the wildlife refuge where the cranes spend the winter. And that's why it was chosen as the first day city. The cover itself is actually just gray and white, and Hiram has done a light coloring here. Here's another version of the same cover, but this one he's colored more deeply, and he mailed it himself to Hiram Mall, Herman Mall, another cachet maker of the era. New Orleans was chosen because they were the first to successfully breed whooping cranes, the first zoo to breed whooping cranes. And here's one of the 2 types of cancellations you could get. Each of the 4 locations had 2 different cancels, a hand cancel and a machine cancel. So in addition to 4 locations, you have times 2, 8 possible cancellations available. Here's their program. And this is a photograph of Josephine and her chick. There are so few whooping cranes in the early 50s, they all are known by their name. Today, there are enough that they are known by a serial number. But here's Josephine and her chick, one of the very first born in captivity. The General Post Office, here's a hand-painted Ulrich cachet for the first day. This is the cancellation for that. And my favorite location is actually New York City, the ASDA show. It was held at the Armory, one of the armories here. Here's the program. This was printed by Linz. It was a Souvenir program. It's not the official first day program. I haven't found that one yet, but it's the 9th stamp show. And this is the stamp show station. This is the cancel you find from the stamp show, one of the 2. And it's a Burt cover with a hand-drawn, I don't think that's a whooping crane, but a hand-drawn water bird. Yeah, it's like, and it's signed on the back, Tom, 1 of 1. And the reason I kind of like the stamp show is because they also put out these kind of cool poster stamps advertising the show. This person, John W. Nicklin, he prints these for each of the shows. This is the 9th version, and it's this design by Ralph Dyer, 4 colors, perf and imperf. And it's the same design that he used for his cachets.
Dyer was living right across the Hudson River from New York City at the time in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And Nicklin, I believe, was from India, or at least in later years was Indiana, and was a big cachet. did a whole bunch of cachets for 7171 that I collected. And he was, I think, the chapter coordinator of the AFDCS for a number of years.
Okay, well, you do some more research on a lot of this stuff before it goes
You know
into an
about Nick
exhibit.
to talk with Mark Goodson. He's the expert on them.
Okay.
That's a beautiful cachet.
Yeah, and they're actually recognized as two distinct ones. If you look at the bird in the back, that background's distinctly different. The details on the rocks and the vegetation are different. The birds themselves, there's a lot more pen and ink work on it. Yeah, I just love these two cachets. But you can see he designed, I'm not sure which came first, but he designed the poster stamps and then used the same design here. And those poster stamps really get around. People bought them and used them in addition to a cachet. Here's just a generic cachet by Capaldi. Or sometimes it's a blank envelope and it's used in lieu of a cachet. So there's a whole collecting area just looking at the use of these poster stamps in combination with the first days. One of the things I really like to do is try to figure out where cachets came from. Well, this one, they tell you, it's the National Wildlife Federation photograph of the 3 whooping cranes. This is the first cachet on a maxi card by the Corpus Christi Junior Museum, but this photo is used a lot of times. Here it's used by Artcraft, which was listed as the official ASDA show cover. There are hundreds of these out there and available. This one happens to be signed by the 4 gentlemen involved with designing, producing the stamp. We had Bob Hines, the artist. George Payne was the engraver of the text, the lettering. Richard Bauer was the engraver of the picture. And then Chickering was responsible for the modeling of the stamp. And just as an aside, there were 4 plate numbers available for the first day, and an additional 2 were ordered, but they went to the printer too late to be available on the first day of issue. So this is the most common color, the Artcraft in black. And like I said, there are, right now on eBay, there's something like 90 of these and to various destinations available. And I just picked a group, and you can find all of the locations. Here's New York, Corpus Christi, you can find New Orleans. You can find the stamp show. This is one from a set of 4 that I have. Each one is signed by one of those 4 people involved with the stamp production. This one's a group of 3 that stamps that paid the surface rate to France, to Europe. And this one I could use some help on. It was noted that this was addressed by somebody named Stone, who apparently was very well known for doing this kind of lettering and addresses. So if anybody knows anything about this person, I'm open to receipt of information.
I have some more examples and I'll be glad to talk to you about them.
Okay, I'm making a
don't
note.
I don't know about the artist, but I know where the location is. It's across across the street from the train station.
The Garfield
was the 3rd stop on the line I used to take home from school.
Oh, there you go.
Part of Garfield.
Okay,
Probably
well,
I'm the only one who's ever heard of Plauderville.
yeah, well, these are, like I said, the black and white version is the most common, but they also did them in the 3 colors, which I think were an attempt maybe to mimic the colors in the stamps. These are much less common, but again, here's the stamp show, station cancel. Let's see, where would this one? This one would have been from the General Post Office, stamp show. And you can find them with plate blocks, singles. Here's all of the wildlife conservation ones. but the same image, that National Wildlife Federation photo, here it is on a silk screened cachet by Lewis. Taking a sip of water there.
The Eric Lewis ones are very scarce. I think he only did like 10 an issue.
Yeah, I have 2 of these and I forget how, I think they're numbered on the back.
He worked for Xerox, and years ago we had somebody in America give a presentation on him.
Ah,
Fabulous quality silk screening.
yeah, they're beautiful. And kind of I would say like a delicate surface, so you kind of have to protect it so it doesn't rub off. This is we think this one is by the addressee. And it's not numbered or anything. It has no other information other than the address, but it's just an attempt to copy this bird in flight. Or here's the George Hammond souvenir card. He did one for each of the 4 locations, and they all have all 4 stamps on them. Pentarts, this is the number 10 envelope version, and it's again based on that same photograph. And I guess this is supposed to be like a flying wedge of stamps of birds or something, because it, otherwise there's no real reason to have 5 stamps on it. And of course, Pentarts does sets of 5, and one of the smaller ones also has that particular image on it. But the other 3 are single stamps, block of 4, and they're all based on Audubon prints, including the Sandhill crane down here. There were a few, not as many as I would have expected, but there are quite a few cachets that are just based on the stamp. Here's one from ATA, addressed to Leo August, who helped founded the AFDCS.
And
Here's this one by Shear. Okay, I have a question. Is it velvetone with an E or velvetone with an A? I've seen it both ways. With the A?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I saw it both ways. In fact, this one says it has the E, velvetone maximum card.
Well, that's interesting.
I'm pretty sure it's with the E.
Oh,
E. Well, I think may have showed it here both ways based on, probably showed it with the E because of this printing here. So here it is. It's just based on the stamp. This is an unknown cachet maker, but it's the drawing of the stamp. It's printed cachet. This is really interesting. Think back to the introduction about the whooping cranes. So there are only about 2 dozen left in the wild in 1953. So this person, F.W. Larman, was out in Saskatchewan at a wildlife refuge, and lo and behold, these 3 birds, whooping cranes, flew overhead, and he managed to catch a set of 4 photographs. Now, I've shown them with the distance decreasing as if these 2 were catching up, but it could have been gone the other way. Maybe this guy was flying faster and pulling away, but it's a sequence of 4 showing the space gradually getting farther and farther apart. So this is a photograph I just pulled off the internet, one of the articles. It was really widespread, commonly seen. Here's a postcard with the Canadian first stake, Canadian stamp on it. And this is a first cachet, Henry Gonzalez, using that particular photograph, based on that photograph. And it was also used by Anderson. Did it in 4 colors. And again, you can find cancellations from all 3 locations, all 4 locations. Couple of maximum cards I have, and this is by no means all of the material I have, just some of the more interesting things. Seagull Stamp Club, our friends who put on the Corpus Christi first day ceremony. This is a maximum card, first cachet for them. Terran's maxi card. He was a dealer at the ASDA show, and this is a first cachet for him. And I just lumped the group into handcrafted cachets, a couple by Mary Breyer, hand drawn, hand painted. Here are some flock cachets by Velvetone. Very wide variations in the colors you can find. This is probably the most colorful I've seen. Most of them are more dull colors like this, but I found them to be remarkably similar to the Breyer cachet. So somewhere out there, I'm hoping I will find a picture of a whooping crane next to some cattails, and maybe that can be the source for all of these images.
Regarding the spelling of Velvetone, I have a
Yes.
bunch here that I've been writing up for the auction.
Mhm.
The bunch that I have here, they're signed by August Dargist, and then underneath it, it says Velvetone with a hyphen in between, and it's
With-
spelled with an A, and it's
Velva-
rubber stamped that.
So Velva-tone.
Yeah, but others might just say Velvetone, again with an A, without the
Yeah.
hyphen.
And then the maxi card had Velvetone with an
Yeah.
E.
Yeah,
The current
Hmm.
auction listing has Velvetone with an E. One wrong or other. I've always seen it with an E, but I could be wrong.
the current auction listing?
Yes, there's a whole bunch of Velvetones in the current AFDCS auction.
I wrote up that section and I put an E?
You put-
Now that's weird.
you put an E.
So I'm glad the experts have total disagreement here.
It's your own fault.
That's right. I
Okay.
did.
So like I'm right 50% of the time, maybe. Okay, so
No,
here
it's
we
not.
have,
I spelled it with an A. I just looked at it.
Yeah, but Michael, velvet,
I know what you're saying.
Velvet, which is a word on its own, and what the name of the cachet is trying to imitate, is spelled with an E, velvet.
I understand that, but I'm looking at his signature over a rubber stamp that has an A. But he must have put the rubber stamp there, I assume. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
no, that's okay, because it was a question I had. I may be sorry I asked. I don't know. Here we go. Okay, so, and these are rank 2. They're also flocked in 3 colors that I've seen so far. Some hand-drawn, hand-painted. We think this one is a set. This is 3 out of a set of 4 that I have, because I got lazy and didn't scan the 4th one for some reason. But again, we think it's just this Joseph Malik is the person who did these, probably make one of each just for himself. And the variation is really seen in the lettering, different colors, different arrangements, different sizes. You know, so typical. And oh, this is curious. It's canceled upside down in Corpus Christi, which is kind of weird.
I love it, the upside down one.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they're doing these. How does that happen? Anyway, the Jack's cachets, again, available from 3 of the locations. I don't know if he did all 4, like one from the, what's missing? New York, the stamp show is missing. So I gotta keep my eyes open for that one. These I think are very pretty. These ones by Wright. Hand drawn, hand painted. These are all Corpus Christi. I don't know I've ever seen another location for these guys. Some printed general use, picked out just these 4 by Cachet Craft, Ken Bowl. A general one, and then these 3 are issue specific with the wildlife conservation theme. Couple more. There are quite a few stamp clubs that I found had some sort of a general cachet, but they have first day cancellations from the show. usually from the show, but some of these are probably mailed in to get the cancellation because they were available for 30 days after the show, after the first day. Here's one by Grossman. And this is without a doubt one of my favorites. This is true love, to go to the stamp show and a first day ceremony on the first day of marriage, first day of issue. And I really hope this couple stayed together long enough, because it was 37 years before a whooping crane showed up on another US stamp. In this case, the joint issue with China. And I think these are very nice stamps, but I'm still partial to the 1957 version. And I just want to leave you with this thought. 1950, there were 24. 1937, maybe 17. In 2020, the last published dates by the International Crane Foundation, there were only 670 still in the wild. It's taken almost 100 years to build up to that population, and they are still endangered. There's still concerns about climate change, about loss of wetlands, loss of habitat. But hopefully these guys are going to be around, and maybe it won't take 34 years, 37 years to get another whooping crane stamp. So that's it. That's the end.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
Thank
Very
you.
good, very good.
Yeah, and I'm going to put in a plug here, my own advertising. Part of my interest in cranes in general stemmed from a visit to the International Crane Foundation, which is about 3 hours north of here in Baraboo, Wisconsin. They were closed for quite a while, of course, because of the pandemic, but also they were remodeling. And it's the only place you can see all 15 species of cranes in one location. They have a brand new visitor center. They reopened late this summer, and I can hardly wait to get up there next year to check them out. They're only open in the late spring through early fall. So if you're ever in Baraboo, Wisconsin, I can wholeheartedly recommend this. So there you have it.